The Toronto Blue Jays are in the market for a DH, and they have a lot of middle infielders on their roster right now. Santiago Espinal has been a name that has been constantly brought up in trade talks. He didn't perform well last year, but the Blue Jays are looking to shop the former All-Star, so we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, Santiago Espinal is an interesting name because he was a former All-Star, but the general consensus around the Toronto Blue Jays fan base is that maybe he didn't necessarily deserve to be there. He's not an all-star caliber player. That's something we can all agree on. Obviously, he had a great first half of the season. He was playing sparingly in the second half, and he was there as an injury replacement, so you could put an asterisk next to it. But he's a serviceable player. He's a guy who has a decently high floor, but a very low ceiling. He doesn't have much power in his game. He can play a few positions at a decent level, but he's not going to tear the cover off the ball at any point in his career. So I don't know. He's kind of plateaued as a player here, and the Blue Jays are in the market to upgrade their roster, whether it be in the bullpen or in the lineup. And Espinal is a name that has been brought up constantly, Nick.
Yeah, more reports are starting to surface about that, especially with the addition of IKF. But a quick reminder, hit the subscribe button before you get into it. Scroll down. If you aren't subscribed, hit it. 73% of you guys aren't subscribed. We're on the road to 12,500. Now, Peter, there's a lot of reports that kind of started to circulate, but it kind of began back when IKF obviously was signed by the Toronto Blue Jays. And we have David Schneider. I don't see a fit for Santiago Espinal. It's about time we have this conversation. And this was from Thomas Hall a few days ago, basically saying whether it's the Giants or not, because the Giants are looking to kind of shop, and a Giants reporter actually hinted at it, saying if the Giants are going to target shortstop depth in the trade market, Espinal feels like the type of player that they want. And then Thomas Hall, as a writer, says it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of, or not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Santiago Espinal gets traded, basically highlighting and alluding to the fact that he is going to get traded. And he did report way back almost a month ago now that they've had multiple internal discussions involving Santiago Espinal, and now, of course, they got the IKF signing him after that. So, Peter, I do have a potential trade I will throw out there in a couple minutes here, but Espinal is an interesting guy. He was a very solid player, kind of an all-star, but I don't know if I consider him even an all-star that season. His glove even fell off last season. Do you see any spot where he could fit, especially with what's seeming like a Kevin Biggio? He's going to have a spot on the team next season with his hot finish last year, and I just don't see a world where they shouldn't trade Espinal to get some sort of asset and that the Jays could use better going forward.
I don't see the fit there anymore, and IKF basically sealed his fate by coming over to the Toronto Blue Jays. Look, Espinal will do one thing for you and one thing only. He'll be versatile. He can play multiple positions for you. Could be your backup shortstop, and you'll play defense at a decently high level. Obviously, we know that about the struggles that he had last season, but he ended up stepping it up towards the end of the year. But now you brought in IKF, who's just as good defensively and is a much better runner. So that kind of seals the fate of Santiago Espinal. There's no real place for him on this team. Now, it's a different story if Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is going to be playing third base every day, which is not an ideal scenario for the Blue Jays. But if that is the case, then maybe you do have room for Espinal because you're still going to need a backup shortstop. You're still going to need a guy who can fill in at third base every now and then. But I don't want Espinal on this team anymore for the simple fact that Davis Schneider showed great flashes with the bat last year. And I know that he cooled off. He had that 0 for 36 stretch, but he was still smoking the ball when he had that 0 for over there. So I think he's got big time potential with the bat. I don't think he's ever going to duplicate the success that he had at the start of his major league career, but he's still someone with an immensely high ceiling just because of that power and because of his great plate vision that he can offer to you. So I like David Schneider as a player. I think he could help this Blue Jays team a lot more than Santiago Espinal can. I don't know if he's a better player than him, but I just think he fits the mold of what the Blue Jays need the most right now, and that's power, and that's someone that can hit in the middle of your lineup occasionally. So I like Schneider much more as a player, and I think he will offer a lot more to the Blue Jays than Santiago Espinal would. So I'd look to trade him. I don't know what his value is, though, Nick. That's the big question. Yeah, sure, let's look to trade him. But are you going to get a bag of balls in return? Are you going to get a mid-level prospect? Are you going to get some cash? I guess anything is better than nothing. But you might as well hold on to him if you can keep him in your organization and just have that organizational depth.
Yeah, and I have a trade I'll throw up in a second, but like you said, last season was very bad, and it also kind of goes to show. I mean, he's 29 years old; he's still fairly in his prime, but we have a lot of infielders ready to come up. Addison Barger, Elvis Martinez, like even if as the years go on, it's not going to get easier for him to find a role in this team. Now, Peter, I saw this mock trade, and it kind of goes back. I don't know if I forget who made it. I don't know if it was a reporter or whatever. We're looking at this report about the Giants from the Giants reporter, and I got this mock trade made up. So it's Austin Slater for Santiago Espinal. I want to get your thoughts on it, Peter. I don't know if the Giants would necessarily do this. It obviously depends on what they value and if they see Slater going forward. But Slater is a DH/outfielder. You look at his stats. He's been in the league since 2017, and he's been a pretty good hitter. 107 OPS plus last year, 121 OPS plus the year before. In the COVID-shortened season, he had a 151 OPS plus. But this would be I guess a defense for offense swap to a degree. Like Slater is a much better hitter than Espinal. He doesn't really give too much power, but he's a solid hitter, gets on base a good bit. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Peter. I just saw it out there, but Slater, an interesting guy, can play a bit of outfield, can play a bit of first, can play a bit of DH, but I don't know how this would work depending on who they get in the rest of free agency here.
Yeah, Slater's more of a platoon bat, as you could see. He's never really gotten into more than like 100 games here, and you see those 129 games. He only had 300 plate
Yep.
appearances in those 129 games. So he's a guy that's going to come in and hit against lefties. That's primarily what he's going to be used for. And yeah, he does offer some power, but not someone that you'll have in your lineup every day. Is again, we have to ask ourselves the question, okay, maybe Espinal isn't the right fit for this roster, but is Austin Slater the right fit? Is he a guy that you want blocking others from getting playing time? Is he going to block Davis Schneider for maybe getting in there against a lefty when you'd like to get him out there? So you got to ask yourselves these questions. And personally, I would keep Espinal around and maybe just get him into AAA if he can clear waivers if someone won't claim him. So it's interesting. I like the possibility of getting Austin Slater back, but I don't know. I'd explore all options at this point.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Again, this is kind of Espinal's value is so low. I mean, this would be an interesting one. I think the Jays would maybe consider it, but again, the biggest thing is blocking all the playing time from the younger guys. And Slater, I mean, he'd be a better hitter. He'd be a better fit in theory, but who really knows? Depending, because obviously Espinal has a lot more versatility. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting to go over this, and especially given the fact that. Again, the big thing here, and Peter, before I wrap up, I just want to ask you, would you be upset if Santiago Espinal is not upset if he's on the team, but I think I'm at the point now, no discredit to Santiago Espinal, I would just prefer the younger guys, whether that's a prospect, whether that's Davis Schneider, whether that's anyone, to get any more potential playing time than him, just because we know what Santiago Espinal is, and we saw that it's not effective in this team. So any quick final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'd be upset if he's blocking others from getting plate appearances, like a Davis Schneider, like a Kevin Biggio. So I wouldn't be upset if he's on the team, if he's your 26th guy in that kind of Nathan Lucas role that we had last season. But I wouldn't like to see him getting at bats over Davis Schneider.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. So let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section. It's going to be very interesting. The biggest thing now is obviously Espinal blocking other players. But that'll wrap it up. If you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow.